Dear students, welcome and thank you for tuning in to this video. I'm Dr. Loy Al-Zobi and I am continuing lecture 15 of the medical instrumentation class, and we are creating a series of videos to introduce the respiratory system and before we get into the measurements of the respiratory system and how it is going to be related to our medical instrumentation class. In this video I will be talking about the breathing reflex mechanisms, and in the following video I will be talking about lung volumes and capacities. Understanding breathing reflex mechanisms is very important actually from an engineering point of view to understand how can we design instruments and tools in order to help people breathe if they have need for that. So I would like to spend some time explaining how actually the control of respiration is made, and I will be mentioning a lot of some ideas about what we can do as engineers. First thing I would like to start with is talking about some anatomy, and I would like to identify the places in the body that controls actual respiration. Everything is going to start in the brain stem, and which is this part of the brain. And in the brain stem we have two key areas of the brain stem that controls actually respiration. The first one is the medulla and the other one is the pons. In the brain stem we have something called the ventral respiratory group, and we have something called the dorsal respiratory group, and this is the location of these groups that are in the medulla where actually they control respiration. And what we know is that the dorsal respiratory group here, the one on the back end of the stem, actually it is responsible for the inspiration, and it controls the diaphragm, which is this muscle here in this location that is very important in respiration. And the ventral respiratory group, which is the one in the front of the stem here, is actually the one that is responsible for rhythmicity of breathing, and these two, they actually together control breathing. Also we have something called the pontine respiratory group here, which actually is we call the pontine respiratory center, which interacts with the ventral and the dorsal respiratory groups in order to have smooth respiration. And the three of them, all these three parts of the stem, actually controls the respiration. In inspiration, which is inhaling the air from the surrounding environment, signal through the nerves comes to the intercostal muscles, and those are the muscles actually that are connecting the ribs. And if that is taking place, in order to have inspiration, the signal should come through respiratory complex, and once that happening, the ribs will rise up in order to increase the volume. Also another signal will go to the diaphragm muscle in order to descend. And this is going to increase the volume and allow air to flow inside the lungs from the surrounding environment. The impulses that are originated from the stem or from the respiratory control network, actually the quicker the impulses coming to the intercostal muscles and to the diaphragm, actually the faster the breathing. The slower the impulses, the slower the breathing, and that's very important. Now, from an engineering point of view, we talked about EMG, electromyography, and it's important actually to measure the EMG of the diaphragm as well as the EMG of the intercostal muscles. But there are different ways, but I think most of them are invasive. But it is interesting to find ways and solutions as engineers in order to be able to assess and measure the electrical activity or the biopotentials of these muscle groups. Respiratory reflexes encompasses a significant repertoire of responses to a variety of sensory receptors, regulating the depth and frequency of individual breathing. And the first thing is the speed, or the impulses. The speed of the impulses going into these muscles affects the how faster or slower the breathing. So slow impulses coming from the central respiratory control network, the slower the breathing is. So that's the first thing. Now, what can influence respiratory centers? So how are these control network or respiratory control, how is this respiratory control network is actually influenced in order to affect respiration rates. There is a schematic that describes the influences of the inspiratory center of how it is going to increase or decrease the respiration rate. And we're going to start with the first thing, which is actually the higher centers of the brain. It's voluntary control, and that you can control your breathing by increasing it or decreasing it to to a specific point, and after that, if you are stopping your breathing, the brain will take over and get the respiration going. So that's the first thing. Pain, emotion, and temperature also stimulates or suppress actually the pontine respiratory group, and then the pontine respiratory group is going to be influencing the medulla respiratory group, which are the ventral and the dorsal respiratory groups. And that's very important actually. So also pain, emotion, and temperature affect the rate of respiration. The main influence in the whole process is actually comes from the peripheral chemoreceptors that they are found in the heart, close to the heart, and in the tissue surrounding the heart as well, and where they will detect chemical changes in the blood, and then these chemoreceptors are going to stimulate the respiratory center, and in order to get a quicker respiration rate. For example, if the oxygen level is down in the bloodstream, and the pH is down because we have high hydrogen atoms, and that is also an indication. It's also we have carbon dioxide the concentration is up. This is going to stimulate the chemoreceptors surrounding the heart and close by to the heart tissue, and this will stimulate the respiratory center, and then we have quicker respiratory rate to speed up the gas exchange and get oxygen. For the blood to be oxygenated. And this is another important aspect in the control. So you can see that we are truly controlling muscles, but also there is a lot of chemical sensing that is taking place in order to control the breathing reflexes, or to control our breathing, our respiration. So that's important to understand. Also, don't forget, we need to mention that we also have some chemoreceptors in the muscles as well, and joints, and that is also in the case of exercise. These chemoreceptors will detect how much oxygen do we have in the muscles, and that's going to affect our respiratory center in order to speed up the respiration. Also, I'd like to mention that in the medulla we have also chemoreceptors that are actually detecting the concentration of oxygen and pH and CO2 in order to control respiration. So all of these actually, when they are stimulated, all what I mentioned so far, when they are stimulated, they will increase respiration rate, and that is will speed up the oxygenation of the blood to be used in metabolism. And the lungs they can influence the respiratory center in the brain stem in a negative way, which means that we would like to slow down respiration, and that could happen because of the irritant receptors in the lungs. It's a protective mechanism in the lung, and it's designed in such a way to blow off irritant, and when stimulated they will suppress respiration, the respiratory system, and will slow down respiration. So that's one thing that is in the lung that is doing negative control, not positive control. And the other thing is we have something called stretch receptors, and also this is a protective reflex against overinflation of the lungs. And when stimulated, they will suppress breathing and slow down the respiration rate as well. So this schematic shows you that if you have a positive here, it means that you are stimulating, and if it's going to stimulate the breathing, increase the rate of breathing. And if you have something that is negative, is going to be suppressing, that's going to slow down the respiratory rate and slow down the respiration. So it's very important for us as engineers to understand this process, because it is going to affect our designs if we are designing an instrument to help people breathe, and also the respiratory measurements or measurement of the respiratory system. I hope that this was helpful in understanding the breathing reflex mechanisms, stimulating or suppressing the respiration. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to write them in the comment sections, and I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. Thank you for watching, and till the next video. Bye.